Today I'm wearing a 2nd Chemical Battalion cap that belonged to Jesse Johnson. Jesse was with 2nd Chemical all the way through the war, won a Bronze Star in Sicily and fought here at Casino. It's an honor to be wearing his hat here on this visit. His wife Jeannie sent it to me after he passed away last year. After the capture of Benevento, the 45th Division was assigned to move eastward down the Calore Valley. On October 10th, D Company set up its guns to defend against possible German attacks from the mountains to the northwest. On that date, a shell hit next to my father's weapons carrier and flattened the tires, and he took a picture of a building that we hoped would let us identify the site where that occurred. This is one of the railroad stations that Peggy and I checked in December, thinking it might be the one where Sergeant Archie Pugh was killed. It's not, and neither is the other one that we checked. With better photographs this time, I can tell that neither matches the landscape. So I'm going to look by the simple expedient of starting here at Campolabatro and walking south along the railroad, because the spot in question was recorded as being halfway between Campolabatro and Fragneto, Monforte. This is a spot that it's very tempting to accept. If you imagine that Sergeant Pugh's gun was right where the camera is, there's a small rise over there that fits. The outline of the mountaintops is about right, and the buildings over there, although there are many more than in 1943, are about in the right place. But there's no sign of a railroad station, and worst of all, the ground on the other side of the railroad is built up in a way that it clearly is not in any of the original photographs. So we will keep tramping.
Che come raccontavano che sparavano qua quando era tempo di guerra.
Essa Cantaria Vecchia, scritto posto Benevento, Fragneto, Campolabatro e qui.
Casa Cades. Tra Casalduna e Campolatà.
Ok. San Marco. E che adesso dice no, secondo me adesso è un altro casello.
Grazie mille per parlare.
Niente. Arrivederci.
If I put Sergeant Pugh's gun about where I'm standing, then this location is the best match that I have found. The ground is flat enough in the immediate vicinity to match the pictures. It drops off faster than the pictures suggest, but then the pictures don't have very detailed background. The building next to the railroad certainly is the closest match to the structure of the building in the pictures. There is a little raised area behind the building, and even a structure of some sort which is in the same place as an old structure in the photographs. So I'm forced to declare that while I'm less than positive, if there is a place along here where that incident occurred, then this is where it took place. In October of 1943, the Allies continued their advance north. The Germans conducted delaying actions while they constructed a series of defensive points called the Victor Line. With the Volturno River immediately to its front, the Victor Line would cause heavy casualties during an Allied crossing and attack. The 45th Division and 2nd Chemical were assigned to approach the flank of the Victor Line from the east, where the Volturno River crossed it in a turn to the northward. This brought them to the valley of the Calore River, west of Benevento and Fragneto Monforte. Calore River flows eastward down this long valley until it joins the Volturno. The valley has mountains on either side that give visibility. The valley is not flat ground. There are hills, small valleys, creeks, and channels that provide all sorts of opportunities for ambushes and safe retreat. In fact, for one of the few times in the war, the bad weather was actually a friend to the Allies. The Germans couldn't see everything that they would otherwise have been able to shoot at. The Germans still found targets, as shown by my father's photograph of a Sherman tank, penetrated by a round from an anti-tank gun. The tank's crew was trapped inside, knowing they would be killed if they left their shelter. One of the mortar squad saw the situation, and within a few minutes 12 white phosphorus shells had shielded the tankers from observation. They all made it to safety, and shortly afterward high explosive shells destroyed the German gun. The Allies made their assault on the Victor Line, crossing the Volturno River on the night of October 12, 1943. The weather was clear and the moon was full, and A Company fired the only nighttime smokescreen of the war, which reduced casualties in the 34th Division as they crossed the river against the German defenses. 40 miles northwest, the Germans had been constructing the Gustav Line, an even stronger position. German units fought delaying actions as their main forces took up their new positions. As 2nd Chemical and the 45th Division followed the Germans north, D Company stopped for bivouac one night near the hilltop town of Presenzano. In fact, they stayed in this field because my father's picture from this location is not near a road, and the only reason he would have had to be out in the middle of this field would be if this was where the company had set up its position for the night. A lot is still the same. They're farms with goats and pigs and chickens. In his picture, this is a clear field. In fact, there is nothing up to the tree line where the hill begins. So, however old the trees in this orchard are, it's less than 63 years. From Presenzano, 2nd Chemical was sent into the Mignano Gap, where they would be under observation and fire from the surrounding mountains. The 45th Division, after 3 months of fighting, was worn down and relieved from the line. As on many other occasions, the chemical mortars continued in combat, attached to the fresh 36th Division. The days in the Gap were filled with fire missions to support the infantry fighting in the mountains above. At night, men were pulled from the mortar companies to take supplies up into the mountains and to bring down the killed and the wounded. On many occasions, the paths were too steep for mules. On November 11th, D Company took up a position in the Gap near the junction of Monte Rotondo and Monte Sasima. The flat land in the Mignano Gap south of Monte Rotondo is filled with orchards and vineyards, in one case a field of sunflowers. This road runs in the direction of the juncture between Monte Rotondo and Monte Sasima, where on November 11th, 1943, D Company was proceeding to a gun position near an anti-tank ditch at the juncture of those two mountains. I believe this is the road that they came in on, and as we go down it, I'll be able to make out more, but if so, it was along this road that my father was leading the company and rolled over a mine, or near a mine, which exploded under the 3rd vehicle in line and killed 5 men. The juncture of the two mountains is about 200 yards that way, which means that map coordinates 985135 are in the little orchard behind me, which is being mowed by a gentleman on a tractor. This would have been the position where the guns were set up. And the records show that the mine was struck about 100 yards from the gun position, which would have been just down the road from me, about where the road goes into those trees. And so the convoy would have been rolling this way, and the third vehicle in line struck the mine. My new friend, Filippo Crolla, tells me that the houses around here are owned by his brothers and sisters. In 1943, the only one of these houses that was here is the one behind me, now a barn, which was built by Filippo's father. If it was here in 1943 and the only building, it may well have been D Company's headquarters at this gun position. It's quite possible that my father spoke with Filippo's father when they took over the house for their command post. This is the juncture where Monte Rotondo meets the Sesima Massif, and in the distance is Monte Sammucro, still held by the Germans at the time this gun position was occupied. The gun position was shelled heavily for the several days that they were here, and with the observation available to the Germans from those mountains across the valley, you can certainly see why they would have been